Welcome to The Explainer. All right, today we're jumping into something pretty controversial. It's one psychologist's framework for what masculinity really means in the modern dating world. And, this perspective, it really pushes back on a lot of what we think we know. So let's just get right into it. All right, let's just start with the single statement that is the absolute core of this whole theory. It's a big one, and it's definitely designed to be provocative. The idea is that masculinity isn't about forcing a woman to submit. It's about living a life that a woman would naturally and willingly want to be a part of and submit to. So, okay, what does that actually mean? A life that women can submit to? Well, according to this framework, it has nothing to do with dominance. Nope. It's about a very specific set of qualities that a man has to build within himself. And here they are. The three pillars of masculinity, according to this perspective. You've got self-control, protection, and provision. The whole argument is that when a man can master his own impulses, with money, sex, even what he eats, and he proves he can keep his family safe and provide for them, that's when a woman feels secure. She can trust his lead. But if he can't do those things, well, the theory goes, she's forced to take control, and that's where resentment starts to build. Okay, so with that foundation set, let's talk about the major historical event that, according to this psychologist, just completely flipped the script for men and women. We are talking about the sexual revolution. And what's so interesting here is the argument being made about what changed. So, before the sexual revolution, this theory says that for a man to even get access to sex, he had to prove himself first, right? He had to show he was a guy with a future, that he could commit, that he had his stuff together. He basically had to demonstrate those masculine traits we just talked about. But after, that whole requirement just vanished. And the consequence of that shift from this viewpoint was absolutely massive. Because when you remove the incentive for men to build up those core traits, that self-control, that ability to protect and provide, the theory posits that the whole standard of what it means to be a man just dropped. But hold on, it wasn't just about men. This shift allegedly created this deep, kind of challenging imbalance between men and women, one that, according to the source, we are still dealing with right now. So here's the really crucial point, this supposed trade-off. The idea is that as men stopped being required to be masculine in that traditional sense, women, well, they started picking up some of those traits themselves. Specifically, a more detached, kind of traditionally masculine way of looking at sex and relationships. And his quote? Yeah, it gets right to the heart of it. The source claims that you now have women who are more interested in just casual physical encounters, sometimes even aggressive ones, instead of intimacy and connection. And from this point of view, that way of thinking creates this idea that partners are basically interchangeable, disposable, and that, of course, changes the entire dating game. So this all begs a really important question about what men want. I mean, if detached, easy sex is everywhere, what's the real endgame for men according to this framework? At first glance, the argument seems to be exactly what you'd expect, right? The old stereotype that all men really want is sex. Purely physical, end of story. But then, bam, an immediate, very strong correction. And this is where the whole theory takes a really interesting turn. It suggests that what we all think men want is actually a huge misunderstanding of what they truly need. And here's the big reveal. According to this psychologist, men don't just want sex, they want intimate sex. It's about that deep emotional connection with one trusted partner. And the theory goes that when a man doesn't have that intimacy, he makes a mistake. He thinks the answer is just more sex, when what he's really missing is the connection. This, the source argues, is why a man might risk his entire life for an affair. It's not just for the physical act, it's for that feeling of emotional investment that he's starving for. Okay, so let's take all of that and see how it leads to this really weird paradox in modern dating, something that, when you first hear it, makes absolutely no sense. Why are married men sometimes seen as more desirable than single men? I mean, it's totally illogical, right? The guy is off the market. But according to this framework, some women actually prefer them, and there's a very specific reason why. The argument is that a marriage or any long-term committed relationship is basically like a training ground. Think about it. A married man has spent years, maybe even decades, getting constant, honest feedback from one person. Feedback on everything: his communication, his emotional support, his performance, you name it. He's had to learn, adapt, and get better. And this is what really highlights that feedback gap. A single guy could have, I don't know, 100 different partners in a few years, but what does he really learn? There's no reason for any of them to give him real constructive feedback. But the married guy, he's got one partner, but he's collected thousands of little data points on what works, what doesn't, and how to actually be good in a relationship. He's got the real world experience.
So, in this view, that wedding ring is more than just a sign that he's taken. It's a signal. It's basically a walking resume that says, hey, I've proven I can take feedback, I can listen, I can change, and I know how to commit and improve for someone else. It's proof of concept.
Which brings us to the final, really provocative takeaway from this whole framework. We live in a world of seemingly endless options, where the next person is literally just a swipe away. But this theory asks, is the key to a real connection having more choices? Or is it about having more honest, direct, and sometimes difficult feedback with the one person you're actually with?